How does a nation appear on the map? Is it drawn at a conference table by men in suits? Is it forged in the fire of revolution? Or is it something much, much older? A spirit, a memory, a stubborn refusal to disappear? This is the story of a country that was erased. A nation that vanished from the world's maps for over a century. But its people never forgot. They never stopped fighting. They never stopped believing. This is the story of resilience. Of an identity so powerful it could outlast empires. This is the story of the Phoenix of Europe. This is the story of how Poland was created, and recreated, and reborn. Hello and welcome. The story of Poland's creation is not a single event. It is a saga, a 1,000-year epic of kings and warriors, poets and priests, diplomats and revolutionaries. It begins in the shadows of prehistory, rises to the brilliance of a medieval powerhouse, suffers a catastrophic collapse, and then achieves one of the most remarkable resurrections in modern history. To ask how was Poland created, is to ask three questions. How did the first Polish state emerge from the tribal lands of the West Slavs? How did this state develop a unique national identity that could survive even its own destruction? And how, after 123 years of non-existence, did it claw its way back onto the map of Europe in 1918? Over the next hour, we will journey through these phases. We'll speak with leading historians, visit key locations, and unpack the myths and realities behind one of Europe's most enduring nations. This is not just history, it's the story of an idea, the idea of Poland. If you're enjoying this story, please like and subscribe for more history documentaries. Our story begins in the 10th century, in the heart of Europe. Between the rivers Oder and Vistula, a multitude of West Slavic tribes known as the Lechites lived in scattered settlements. Among them were the Polans, the people of the fields, from whom the name Poland would eventually derive. For centuries, these tribes lived, farmed, traded, and warred with each other, worshipping a pantheon of Slavic gods. But a transformation was coming from the west and the south, the rising, organized, and militant powers of Christian Europe and the Holy Roman Empire. For the scattered Slavic tribes, the choice was becoming stark: consolidate or be conquered. Into this world stepped a ruler named Mieszko, leader of the Polans. Around 960 AD, he inherited a realm that was already consolidating power, subjugating neighboring tribes like the Masovians and Kuyavians. But Mieszko was a strategic genius. He understood that his pagan realm was vulnerable. To his west was the aggressive Holy Roman Empire, which had a habit of conquering Slavic lands under the pretext of Christianization.
Mieszko faced an existential dilemma. The German Emperor Otto III was a direct threat. The Christianization of the neighboring Czech Duchy provided both a model and a warning. Mieszko's brilliant move was to preempt an imperial invasion. By accepting Christianity on his own terms, he removed the casus belli, the reason for war, from the Germans. He moved from being a pagan target to a Christian prince, an equal in the diplomatic game of Europe.
In 966 AD, Mieszko was baptized. This event, known as the Baptism of Poland, is the traditional founding date of the Polish state. It wasn't just a religious conversion, it was a profound political masterstroke. Crucially, Mieszko accepted Christianity from Bohemia, bringing Poland into the Latin, Roman Catholic sphere of influence, rather than the Byzantine Orthodox sphere to the east. This single decision would forever shape Poland's cultural, political, and geographical orientation towards the west. With baptism came literacy, the Latin alphabet, and the administrative tools of a modern state. The church provided a unifying structure and ideology. Mieszko's marriage to the Czech princess Dobrawa sealed the alliance. He even placed his lands under the protection of the Pope in a document called the Dagome Iudex, further securing his borders from imperial ambition. Mieszko's son, Boleslaw the Brave, would take this new state and turn it into a European power. Upon Mieszko's death in 992, Boleslaw seized power, exiling his stepbrothers and unifying the realm under his iron rule. He expanded the borders dramatically, conquering Krakow and Lesser Poland, and waging long, brutal wars to bring Pomerania under his control. But his most famous act was his hospitality to a martyred bishop. The death of Bishop Adalbert, a missionary martyred by the Old Prussians, gave Boleslaw a tremendous opportunity. He purchased the bishop's relics and lavishly enshrined them. This prompted the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III to make a pilgrimage to Gniezno in the year 1000.
The Congress of Gniezno in 1000 AD was a watershed moment. The young Emperor Otto III, a visionary who dreamed of a renewed Roman Empire based on a federation of Christian states, saw Boleslaw as a key partner. He not only prayed at the shrine of Saint Adalbert, but he elevated Gniezno to an archbishopric, making the Polish church independent. He symbolically placed his own imperial crown on Boleslaw's head, recognizing him as a brother and partner, frater et cooperator imperii. This was an incredible diplomatic triumph for Poland, granting it legitimacy and sovereignty on the European stage.
When Otto III died young, Boleslaw once again showed his ambition. He intervened in imperial succession wars and even conquered Bohemia and parts of the Kievan Rus for a time. In 1025, just before his death, he crowned himself king, the first crowned king of Poland. He had transformed his father's duchy into a respected kingdom. But this golden age was not to last. The following centuries would see the kingdom fracture into a collection of rival duchies under Boleslaw's descendants. The fragility of the early state was exposed, yet the memory of a united Poland, the Regnum Polonia, never faded. It became a goal, a dream to be reclaimed. After a period of fragmentation, Poland was reunified in the 14th century. Its apex came with the union with the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The threat from the Teutonic Order to both states created a powerful incentive for cooperation. This culminated in the Union of Lublin in 1569.
The Union of Lublin was a revolutionary act. It did not create a mere alliance or a personal union. It created a single federated state, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Rzeczpospolita Oboga Narodu, the Republic of Two Nations. It was one of the largest and most populous countries in 16th and 17th century Europe, a vast territory stretching from the Baltic to almost the Black Sea. It was remarkably diverse. Poles, Lithuanians, Ruthenians, Ukrainians and Belarusians, Jews, Armenians, Germans and Tatars all lived within its borders.
The Commonwealth was a unique political entity. Its political system was called the Golden Liberty. In an age of rising absolutism in France, Spain and Russia, the Polish-Lithuanian nobility, the Szlachta, had immense power. Elective monarchy. The king was elected by the nobility, making him relatively weak. The Sejm, parliament, a powerful body where every nobleman had the right to sit. Liberum, veto, the infamous rule that allowed any single deputy to nullify all the legislation passed by that session of the Sejm. It was meant to protect consensus but would later become a recipe for paralysis. Confederation and rebellion. The nobility had the legal right to form a confederation and rebel against the king if they believed he had broken the laws of the state. This system was both the Commonwealth's greatest strength and its fatal weakness. For a time, it created a vibrant, decentralized and tolerant society. The 1573 Warsaw Confederation granted religious freedom, making it a rare haven in a Europe torn apart by religious wars. But as the 17th century progressed, the system began to rot. The liberum veto made effective governance impossible. The powerful magnate families became states within a state, pursuing their own interests over the national good. The Commonwealth was rocked by a series of devastating wars in the mid-17th century, Cossack uprisings, a catastrophic Swedish invasion known as the Deluge, and wars with Russia and the Ottoman Empire. The country was left depopulated and economically ruined. While it produced military geniuses like King John III Sobieski, who famously broke the Ottoman siege of Vienna in 1683, the internal decay continued.
The 18th century was the twilight of the Commonwealth. It became a playground for its powerful neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Russian troops were stationed on its soil, and Russian ambassadors essentially dictated policy. The state was sinking into anarchy, and its neighbors were happy to watch it decline, waiting for the right moment to pounce. The idea of Polish sovereignty was becoming a joke.
But not all was lost. A movement of enlightenment and reform emerged from within. In a last desperate attempt to save the state, the Great Sejm was convened. After 4 years of debate on May 3, 1791, it passed what became known as the May 3rd Constitution.
The May 3rd Constitution was a monumental achievement. It was the first written constitution in Europe and the second in the world after the United States. It abolished the liberum veto, established separation of powers, introduced political rights to townspeople, and placed the peasants under the protection of the state. It was a peaceful revolution, designed to modernize the Commonwealth and restore its sovereignty. It was proof that the Polish political nation was capable of profound and courageous reform.
But it was too little, too late. The reforms threatened the interests of the reactionary magnates and, more importantly, the neighboring empires who had no desire to see a strong Poland re-emerge. A group of conservative nobles formed the Targowica Confederation and invited Russian intervention. Russian armies invaded to restore order, followed by Prussia. In 1793 they carried out the Second Partition, annexing huge chunks of Polish territory. The Commonwealth was reduced to a puppet state, a mere rump of its former self. The response was a massive national uprising in 1794, led by the hero of the American Revolution, Tadeusz Kościuszko. Kosciuszko's insurrection was a truly national effort, uniting nobles, townspeople, and peasants for the first time under the banner "For Our Freedom and Yours." It saw initial successes like the Battle of Rakławicz, where peasant soldiers with scythes defeated a Russian force. But the might of the Russian and Prussian armies was overwhelming. The uprising was brutally crushed. In 1795, the three partitioning powers signed the final treaty. They erased Poland from the map. King Stanislaw August Poniatowski abdicated. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was no more. The promise of the May 3rd Constitution was extinguished in blood. For the next 123 years, there would be no Polish state. The creation of Poland was now seemingly undone, but the story was far from over. The fight for its recreation was about to begin. Poland was gone, but the Polish people were not. The partitions did not destroy the Polish nation, they scattered it. The fight now moved from the battlefield of the state to the battlefield of the spirit. How do you keep a nation alive without borders, without a government, without an army? The answer was through culture, memory, and relentless resistance. The 19th century became the Polish century of struggle. The Great Emigration. After the failed uprisings, tens of thousands of the most politically active Poles, soldiers, officers, writers, artists, politicians, fled to Western Europe.